I'm here today to tell you a story that needs to be told. It's the story of the person who really got me thinking about the questions that led me to my initiative. Now, I'll call her Didem. Didem is a Kurdish transgender woman who lives in Diyarbakir, a city in the southeast of Turkey. Now, just to backtrack a little, I was living in Istanbul this past summer, and I was doing work on the Kurdish question, doing research on the Kurdish question, and also working with a human rights organization there called the Center for Truth, Justice, and Memory. One of my colleagues dragged me to the Istanbul Pride Parade, where I was lucky enough to meet Didem. Now, fast forward about 2 weeks, and I found myself in Diyarbakir, meeting with Didem and meeting with other activists like Didem to get a sense of what it was like to be Kurdish and transgender or queer in Turkey. The day that I interviewed her, in fact, there was a big protest in Diyarbakir organized by the primary Kurdish political party, the Peace and Democracy Party. And so I wanted to share some of her words with you guys. If I told anyone here that I'm Kurdish, I would be killed. Nobody knows I'm Kurdish outside of my close friends. I can't say that I'm a Kurd when I'm walking on the street or when I go somewhere, because I'm a transgender individual. Do you understand? You can accept your Kurdish identity or you can accept your LGBT identity. Unfortunately, I can't accept my Kurdish identity. When my family learned that I was trans, my older brother tried to kill me 3 times. I was kept in the house like a prisoner for 8.5 months. They put a chain around my foot so I wouldn't run. For 3 years, I was tortured continuously and by my own brother. I was beat up. I was denigrated. I tried to commit suicide. For 3 years, I went through these things just because I'm trans. Now, like I said at the beginning, this is a story that needs to be told. It's a story that has the power to transform perceptions and understandings of LGBT people in Turkey. But it's not my story to tell. Now, when I talked to Didem, she told me her story, and it really, really moved me very deeply. You know, as a queer man who grew up in a very conservative environment, I was really, really touched and really troubled by the kinds of things that Didem had to go through. And it made me realize just how much I take for granted. So this is not my story to tell. I'm not here today to tell her story or to tell any stories. I'm here today to talk about the need for a space to tell these stories. Now, that's the goal of my initiative. Now, Didem's experiences didn't occur in a vacuum. They're the product of a larger set of political and social conditions, of fears, misconceptions, and prejudices about LGBT people. And so I think that a common argument in Turkey is that change needs to be effected at the institutional level. You hear this argument all the time, you know, that we need gender identity in the Constitution. And to that end, a lot of really wonderful activist work has been going on. Activists who have gone to politicians in parliament and talked to them about the need to enshrine LGBT rights in the Constitution. But I'm skeptical of this kind of top-down approach. I think change is effected at the grassroots level, horizontally, from the ground up. So how can we affect change for LGBT people? Visibility. That's the goal of my initiative. If we can see LGBT people first and foremost as people, see the fullness of their experiences, see their not only their sorrows and their struggles, but also their joys, their victories, their happiness, see the full range and the full humanity, then I think that we can combat these prejudices. We can fight against them. Now, that's the goal of my initiative. I'm really indebted to a number of other organizations that have done incredible work in the Middle East and in Turkey. Since I first met Didem, I've been speaking with activists who've worked on both of these projects and several other projects about how best to implement the initiative that I want to implement, and how I can affect this change on a local level. Not just in Istanbul, not just in Ankara, not just in the political and social centers of the country, but on the local level. And so I've talked to activists about how they can participate, how they can help sustain this initiative. And you know, it would be easy to say, looking at the work that these activists are doing in Istanbul and in Ankara, to think that LGBT activism in Turkey is thriving, it's vibrant. And you know, not to discount the work that they're doing, but I think it overshadows and it invisibilizes things happening on the more local level, things happening in villages, in towns, in small cities, the activism that's going on there. And so they don't get the same kind of attention that they would if they were in Istanbul and Ankara. So I'd like to conclude with this visual. As you can see, this is a map of Turkey, and I've highlighted several sort of metropolitan centers and places where there are LGBT activists doing a lot of really important work. Diyarbakir is here in the bottom right corner. And as you can see, this is very vertical. You have people going from these localities to Istanbul and to Ankara in order to get the financial, political, and social support to continue to sustain their work. And this strikes me as really problematic. Like I said, the work of activism is done at the grassroots level. It's done in and across localities, interregionally, interlocally. And so this is what I think is more productive. Think about this map. Think about the local conversations, the interlocal conversations, the interregional conversations going on. Think about somebody from Van speaking to somebody from Edirne. Think about somebody from Kars speaking to somebody from Antalya. Think about people like Didem speaking to one another, listening to one another. Think about how that combats the persistent notion that we are different. And think about how it helps them realize that no, we have so much in common. Thank you.